Have you been breastfeeding or chest feeding your baby and you're starting to think about introducing bottles, but you don't know how? Or have you already tried to introduce bottles and it didn't go very well and now you're afraid that you will forever be a prisoner to feeding your baby and no one else will ever be able to do it? Today's episode is all about how you can calmly introduce bottles to your baby, what you can do to troubleshoot if it hasn't gone well already. So let's get into it. When I began breastfeeding, I was blindsided by how difficult it was. I may have thought I was prepared, but having known only a handful of people who had ever breastfed and only seeing it up close from a couple of them, I had a huge learning curve. Since then, I've become a doula, a lactation consultant, and a childbirth educator. I'm your host, Lo Nigrosh, and I welcome you to the Milk Making Minutes, where we explore breastfeeding experiences through the lens of systemic barriers, so that you know your breastfeeding struggles are not your fault and your triumphs really are the miracles you feel they are. Okay, so first of all, let's just clear up some things. I hear all the time people using the term nipple confusion. This is not really a thing. Babies don't get confused by nipples. The process of feeding from a person's body is quite different than the process of feeding from a bottle. And babies are actually quite smart. They are born knowing how to suckle. Sucking is one of the innate reflexes of a baby. Now, there is a learning curve to learning how to extract milk, as many of us come to discover once it's our turn to try to feed our babies human milk. And many of us are surprised to discover it's hard for them to do it from a bottle as well. And that is because the function of the tongue movement is quite different when milk is being extracted from the body than when milk is being extracted from a plastic nipple. So babies know that it's different. But what does start to develop is a flow preference because the milk comes out of the bottles way more quickly than it does out of the body. And it comes more steadily than it does out of the body. Anyone who can feel their milk releasing knows that there are big releases. And so the baby might get a lot of milk all at once. But then after that, the baby really has to work hard. Whereas with the bottle, if you just turn it upside down, the milk just automatically drips out. So the baby does not have to work nearly as hard with the bottle. And so if paced bottle feeding is not used, the technique of paced bottle feeding, which I did describe in episode 62, so you can go back and listen to that episode to know once your baby has tolerated getting that new type of nipple in their mouth, you do want to continue to use paced bottle feeding so that they don't then start to prefer that faster flow, because you can help the flow slow down, even if it's never going to be the exact same experience that it is from the body. Okay, so with that being said, timing. When do you want to introduce the bottle? I recognize that this question is going to be answered differently for each individual. So if you have some time, let's say you have 10 to 12 weeks before you are returning to work, then I would wait a little while if I were you. Or if you are going to be staying home for a while with the baby, then wait. Wait until nursing has been fully established and you're not in any pain, milk transfer is going well, baby is transferring milk. Now, this is, of course, assuming the best case scenario that you do not need to pump and supplement. Now, if you do need to pump and supplement, that's going to be a different story because you may be teaching the baby to use the bottle a little earlier on, although there are other ways to feed that expressed milk to a tiny newborn. So if everything is going well with nursing and there's no reason to introduce a bottle early, just wait until you feel like, okay, I've got this. I can nurse in a variety of scenarios. I can nurse outside the home. I can nurse at a restaurant. I can nurse on the park bench. I can nurse in my living room. I can nurse in my bedroom. And you feel like, okay, I finally have this down. Then, once you feel like you can start to introduce a new skill for you and baby, then you can go ahead and, under low pressure situations, introduce a bottle. So don't do this when baby is super duper hungry. Do it in between some feedings with some expressed milk or some formula if that's what you're choosing to do. Just recognize that when you're using formula, you still want to protect your milk supply. But if you're just doing this to see if baby will take the bottle, know that if that bottle refusal happens and you've introduced formula, it might be that they just are unaccustomed to the taste. And so you're doing a little bit of experimenting there because you have multiple variables. If the baby refuses, then you won't know which variable it is. So if you can introduce with your own human milk, then you'll know that the bottle refusal is happening because of the bottle and not because of the taste. So start at a time when baby is not super duper hungry. So it can be an exploratory experience, and start with a small amount. So maybe a half ounce to an ounce. And we used to say, you used to hear a lot, you used to do, else should feed the baby the bottle. And mom should go as far away as possible, or the nursing parent should go as far away as possible. And you can do that if you want, but I also think it's okay for the nursing parent to offer the bottle. There's not a lot of research on bottle refusal, so we don't really know if bottle refusal happens more with the nursing parent than with other people. So if you prefer for a partner or a grandparent or a friend to introduce the bottle and see if that goes smoother, you can, but you can also try yourself. So make it a playful time. Dip the outside of the nipple in some of your milk so that right away, when that nipple is coming to the baby, they're smelling that familiar smell. And then you're going to bring the nipple to the baby's mouth and you're going to rub their upper lip and their bottom lip with the bottle. And that will trigger the reflex for their mouth to open. And you want them to get a wide open mouth, just like you do when they are latching onto you. So once they get that wide open mouth, they want as much of the bottle nipple into their mouth they can get. And so that leads me to the next topic, which is, which bottles should you use? And I see this question a lot on mom groups, and I get asked a lot by my clients. And there are so many bottles out there, and they're often marketed to look like breasts or to be most like breasts or to have an experience that is so similar to breasts. And let me tell you, that's a bunch of baloney. As I was saying before, babies are smart. They're not being tricked into thinking that a bottle is a breast, not because they are shaped like a breast and not because they are the same color as a breast. They don't feel like a breast in the mouth. They don't stretch like a breast. They they don't move like a breast in the mouth. It's just a completely different experience. Their tongue actually has to do a completely different thing. They actually have to block the airway when they are taking milk from a bottle, and the tongue is actually moving in a completely different way. And we know this from sonogram um, videos of nursing babies. So it's just not going to work to trick a baby into thinking it's a breast. What we do want to see from the nipple is, we don't want to teach the baby to suck on the nipple like a straw, because we do know that then transfers over to nursing. We have seen this. So if a baby starts to get chompy on the bottle nipple, they may then start to get chompy on the mammary tissue. So we do see the opposite effect of it transferring back over to nursing behavior, which is painful for the parent. And so you want to see a gradually sloping nipple on the bottle that allows for the baby to get as much of the nipple into their mouth as possible. So you want the baby's mouth to be as close to the base, the round circle that screws onto the top of the bottle, as possible. And so a few bottles that have nipple shapes like this are Lancino, the Dr. Brown's original narrow nipple, and the even flow balance standard nipple. Those are 3 that have this gradual flow of nipples. And so once you have the nipple, you bring it up to the baby's mouth, you rub it around their mouth, let them open up, and then let them accept the bottle into their mouth. You don't want to create any sort of aversion by doing any shoving into the baby's mouth. So let them accept it into their mouth. And then you want to use that paste bottle feeding technique, which I have outlined in episode 62, which is essentially holding the baby upright and allowing most of the nipple to be filled, but not all. And you're going to keep the bottle horizontal so that they're not being waterboarded by the milk, and they can still control the flow a little bit. And see if that works. If it doesn't work, then there are some things you can do. So you can have the nipples around the house for the baby to explore with. So you can just have a nipple for them to suck on during the day, something for them to touch and play with. And then you're just going to start with dipping the nipple into some milk without the bottle, letting them suck it off. And then you're going to gradually build up to trying to attach it to the bottle again and doing another feeding. And one other thing about introducing bottles is frequency, how frequently you should do this as you're building up to returning to work, or just to make sure that baby doesn't forget about the bottle. So I would say once a day or once every couple of days, so that baby doesn't forget the skill. And with that being said, have a great day. I'll see you in the Milk Making Minutes community group, where we discuss systemic barriers that make baby feeding difficult. And if you want to hear more about bottle refusal, then go there and we can chat about it there, or you can request that I make a full episode on that. And if you would like to have a one-on-one with me, a virtual lactation consultation about bottle refusal specifically, or about any other topic that's on your mind, go to my website at www.quabbinbirthservices.com and you can schedule that. I can most likely bill your insurance. And if not, I can provide a super bill for you to get reimbursement. Okay, bye.